Yes, the great city of St. Louis. And St. Louis, and I thank you, Chairman Cohen, for convening this hearing and acknowledging St. Louis. Thank you. To all of my colleagues here today and elsewhere, we are running out of time. Just in the last few weeks alone, some of our colleagues in the Senate have actively been undermining our ability to deliver significant voting reforms. I want to focus my remarks today on nonpartisan federal election observers. We all watched as Georgia passed SB 202 with a provision that makes it a crime punishable by up to a year in jail for nonpartisan volunteers to provide bottled waters for voters in line outside of polling places. That's what we're up against. Several Republican-controlled states have gone out of their way, time and time again, to suppress Black voters because they fear our power and our political vision for America. They know what we stand for. That's justice and our liberation in its totality. Some of my colleagues can sit here and use coded language about states' rights in the federal government, or we can call it what it is. This is a conversation about one party's intent in their ongoing white supremacist attempts to suppress the power of Black and brown, indigenous, and other marginalized voters. Missouri, Georgia, my state of Missouri, Georgia, Texas, Arizona, the list goes on. Each of these states have introduced and passed restrictive voter laws. They will continue to do this without this type of oversight. It is for this reason that nonpartisan federal election observers are needed to investigate, document, and build a record of discrimination that can be used in courts and to inform legislation. These nonpartisan observers strengthen our election process by providing information and oversight when poll workers and administrators are often and otherwise overstretched and overworked. In 2016, federal election observers were only sent to 5 states during our presidential election. This was one of the smallest deployments of federal observers since the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Scaling back observers makes it difficult to detect and counter efforts to intimidate voters, meaning we don't even know how bad it is in many states across the country. So, Mr. Tucker, how do federal observers play an important role in enforcing the Voting Rights Act, and how has their role been diminished? I'm sorry. How has it been diminished since the Supreme Court's decision in Shelby County?
Thank you so much for that question. As I noted in my testimony, I think the easiest way to think of federal observers is with the acronym PEP. I mean, a lot of us attorneys, that's how we remember cases. It stands for Progress in Enforcement and Preventing. Basically, they prevent discrimination from occurring. They make voters feel more comfortable. People are less likely, if they have people watching, they're less likely to discriminate against minority voters. They enforce because where they document instances in which violations of the 14th or 15th Amendment or the VRA have occurred, the DOJ has that information that they can prosecute it criminally if necessary. And then they also measure progress because that's really important. Many of the jurisdictions are covered under federal court orders, and it helps the federal judge assess how are they doing. Are they actually coming into compliance with the terms of the order? Shelby County's impact has been twofold. One is that, as I noted, by eliminating the Section 4 coverage formula for Section 5, it essentially eliminated the mechanism by which the Attorney General can certify jurisdictions for observers. And then the second thing, as I also noted, is that federal courts are reluctant to find intentional or purposeful discrimination, which has limited the scope of Section 3A relief.
Thank you. Ms. Butler, how have polling site closures disproportionately impacted Black, brown, and indigenous voters?
Well, I tell you, most of the polling location changes in Georgia, and there have been over 200 or so since the Shelby decision, they are predominantly in African-American communities. And so that's how it has impacted it. It's made them so that they consolidate them. People have to drive further in rural areas without public transportation. Everyone doesn't drive. So it makes it difficult. It's just a barrier for people to be able to exercise their right to vote freely.
Yes, and our right to vote is the foundation of our democracy. The right to vote is our instrument for change. Who we choose to represent us is a reflection of our struggles and our aspirations as a country and a society. It angers me that this fundamental right is often suppressed in this functioning democracy. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Bush. And now I recognize from Houston, Texas, where they not only sing, but they dance, Archie Krells.